A couple days ago, I was flying the Tier 10 Typhoon, Typhoon 2, and I have to admit, I really like that ship. I actually like it a lot more than the Barghest. The Barghest is still way too expensive for my taste, while it does have fantastic performance on missiles, it is still way too expensive for general use. The Typhoon 2 is pretty close to the Barghest, while it costs way less, so the Typhoon 2 will be my next primary PvP battleship after the Balgorn. Now, this is the Tier 9 Typhoon, and I believe that the Tier 9 and Tier 10 Typhoons are generally very similar. The Tier 10 Typhoon does have a little bit more module slots. It also has a little bit better bonuses. Now, this ship has large missile torpedo pressure bonus that will give you minus 5% large missile torpedo activation time, plus 7.5% large missile torpedo explosion velocity, and the battleship command bonus will give you plus 5% scan resolution. Overall, the bonuses are quite similar to the Tier 10 Typhoon. The Tier 10 Typhoon has a little bit better large missile torpedo explosion velocity bonus, which is to be expected. It is overall a upgrade over the Tier 9 ship. Now, the ship has 2 drones, 7 high slots, 3 medium slots, 6 slow slots, 3 combat and 3 engineering rigs. Overall defense is okay. The ship can do both a shield or armor tank. In my case, I mostly use a shield tank on these ships. However, you can make a pretty good armor tank on most Minmatar ships, but I personally like to use shield. I have at the moment better shield skills than armor skills. The capacitor, I guess it's okay, quite comparable to the other Tier 9 battleships. The Tier 10 Typhoon does have these stats a little bit improved, although they are generally very similar, but I believe that you will notice the difference. What's interesting, both of these ships are very quick, and that's one of my personal favorite thing about these Minmatar battleships. They are very fast. Now on to the fit. So I have tried to build this ship the same way as I did build the Typhoon 2 to make a accurate comparison between these two ships. With the large missiles, I have around 90-70 kilometer range. Everything is quite similar to the Typhoon 2 stats, because I'm actually using the same rigs on this ship. One thing that kinda stands out is that this ship doesn't have 8 high slots, it has 7 slots. So you are going to lose a little bit of alpha damage with this ship, but you will not notice that quite often, because the overall damage output on this ship is quite good. Now it has 3 medium slots. I did decide to go with a neutralizer, scrambler and a web, primarily as defense against fast ships. And in the low slots, dual adaptive, 1 shield booster, micro drive, and of course a ballistic control. Now, as for the rigs, you don't necessarily need to use rig integrations on this ship. I used rig integrations just to be able to do a accurate comparison between the Tier 9 and Tier 10 Typhoon, but here are the rigs that I use on this ship. And yes, at the moment I believe the rigs itself are way more expensive than the hull of this ship. But that's okay. This Tier 9 Typhoon can actually fight Aortus one-on-one if it uses rapid missiles, because it has enough DPS and alpha damage to shoot down Aortus without a problem. Now, the base resistances are okay. You can go for a more tanky build if you like, but I personally will fly these ships primarily with DPS in mind. And here you can take a look at the other stats. Almost 300 meters per second base velocity on the Typhoon 2, which is good. On the Rapids I have 41.2 kilometer range, 4.7 kilometers per second flight velocity, explosion velocity 117 meters per second, explosion radius 81.85. Now, this ship has enough speed and overall enough maneuverability to slingshot most cruisers that are orbiting at a long range, so you should be pretty safe with rapid missiles. And of course, torpedo launchers. Now, torpedoes are generally good against battlecruisers, battleships. They have shorter range, but they have very good DPS and overall very good alpha. The stats on the torpedoes are good, although the range is kinda lacking. So with torpedoes you can use missile guidance computers. 1 or 2 should give you around 27 kilometer range. With one missile guidance computer, 17.58 kilometer range on the torpedoes. Of course, your DPS will go down a little bit. With 2, it's 18.83 kilometer. That's the passive bonus. Now let's take a look at the active effect. The active effect on the missile guidance computers lasts for 10 seconds. Should give you around 3 missile volleys, 27 kilometer with 1 active, and with 2 of these active it should be, oh well, 27. Something is not right here. I believe I clicked a little bit too early or too late. Overall you have 20 seconds of 27 kilometer range on the torpedo launchers on this ship. Here are the resistances: 157,000 effective hit points. The resistances are generally the same as on the Typhoon 2, however the Typhoon 2 does have a little bit more shield armor and hull, which is interesting because I have basically the same skills for these ships, although that's the difference between tier 9 and tier 10, I guess. 1.8 kilometers per second is the velocity. Now here is where things get interesting. These two ships are moving at almost the exact same speed. Typhoon 2 is just a little bit faster. So both of these ships are very quick. 34.1 kilometer range with the torpedo launchers with dual missile guidance computer active at the same time. Although 27 kilometer range should be more than enough for PvP if you plan to use the ship for that. Alright, well, you can also take dual ballistic controls. Now with ballistic controls you get more alpha, you get more DPS, but you lose range. This fit is good if you are in a fleet, and of course if you have someone to tackle the target, because with this build you have enough time to approach and of course to unleash the full DPS of this ship. 2.3 thousand and 2.7 thousand DPS with both ballistic computers active. 5.8 seconds activation time. Overall, I'm quite happy with the torpedo build on the Typhoons. Overall, I have a couple ideas that I wanna personally try out for PvP on the Typhoons. Now, you can swap one adaptive into a capacitor battery. However, if you are in a fleet, then that will be unnecessary, but having a capacitor battery is always a very good idea. I also believe that this ship has one low slot lower than the Typhoon 2, which can be problematic in some aspects, but overall shouldn't be causing any problems. 45.5 kilometer range on the rapid missiles using one missile guidance computer When it's activated, the range should go at 66 kilometer range. It is 66.64 kilometer range. Okay, that's pretty good. So this ship, it is tier 9. It's quite cheap, and I have made it effectively lethal against basically any tackling cruiser or any tackling frigate, up to 66 kilometer distance from the ship. So I know that a lot of players have problems with the Ortus. I know that I kinda made the ship popular. I did do the crazy thing with it, so I'm not surprised by that. But the Ortus is basically your number one enemy if you are in a battleship. So having a battleship that can defend itself against a Ortus is a very good idea. And of course, not only the Ortus, but other interceptors and other cruisers can also be problematic against a battleship. So the Typhoon lineup, Typhoon doesn't matter if it's tier 9 or tier 10, both variations of the ship. If built this way, they can easily shoot down a unsuspecting Ortus. The main thing is not to panic. If a pilot panics, then they have practically lost the fight. So panicking is basically the single most deciding factor in PvP. Now let's take a look at how this ship actually works, because it's one thing to, you know, just talk about the missiles, the other thing is to actually use them. Typhoon 2 did work extremely well with large missiles in missions. If I were to do missions, I would still prefer to use rapid missiles, just because I know that you have a lot of cruisers and frigates roaming around. If you are running missions in high SAC systems, then you can use the larger missiles without worrying much. But if you are in low SAC, then I would really recommend that you use rapid missiles with at least 60 or 45 kilometer range. The optimal range on a Ortus is 45 kilometers. At the moment I have 157 kilometer range on these medium missiles. Now, one fun thing about Typhoon is that it has the explosion velocity bonus. So the damage application is going to be pretty good. I have focused the rigs to further improve the damage application on these ships, so even with the normal large missiles, you should be doing a lot of damage to other cruisers and other ships. Now, I'm not quite sure how much damage you would do against an interceptor. Against interceptors, I would still recommend that you use rapid missiles. Rapid missiles should technically shoot down an interceptor in maybe less than 3 or 4 hits. Against the Ortus, for example, you can use large missiles. It should do around 3000 damage on the shield, which is already overpowering your average Ortus shield booster. So if the Ortus doesn't warp off, then you have a free 7 billion ISK kill ship. Then you have a free 7 billion Ortus kill with a 300 million ISK battleship, which is a good thing. One of the things that I love about the tier 9 battleships is how good they can be. Now, here I am using the rapid missiles, and you will notice a big difference in the rate of fire, and of course you will see a big difference in the amount of damage that they do. Rapid missiles are perfect for, in my opinion, rapid missiles are basically the perfect missiles for a wide range of use on a battleship, ranging from PvP to missions. Now, of course, I know a big exception to that is the Barghest. The Barghest just works well with any missiles. Although I have to admit, I haven't used I haven't used torpedoes on the Barghest, mainly because the Barghest is, well, too expensive for close range fights. It's mostly good at long range or medium range, but at long range it's actually pretty good. As for this ship, it's quite fast. As you can see, I am maintaining a 40-kilometer orbit around these ships, moving at 1.6 kilometers per second. Now, back to countering the Ortus with a Typhoon. Ortus doesn't have that good of a mobility, at least in my case, and most of them focus on speed. If they use a afterburner, then you can easily catch an Ortus because they are quite slow using a afterburner. If they use a micro-drive, then you can easily slingshot a Ortus with a Typhoon. I know, it sounds weird to slingshot a cruiser with a battleship, but it works. And the Typhoon does have enough maneuverability and speed to do that. And I've noticed a lot of Ortus pilots seem to forget to maintain a good orbiting distance. So you can easily make the Ortus go within your neutralizer range. And once the Ortus loses its capacitor, then it has a couple options. It can continue fighting and risk losing the ship, or they can warp away. If they are not fast enough at deciding on what they like to do, well, they lose the ship. So overall, I personally did shoot down couple, actually not couple, I've shot down maybe 50 Typhoons with the Ortus, but that's me. I'm kinda used to the Ortus, quite skilled in that ship, and that's why I know a lot of its weak spots that I'm going to be sharing with you. So the Typhoon is one of the, I would say, one of the best ships for this purpose. One of the safest battleships, if I can put it that way. Now, the performance on this ship with these missiles is very similar to the Typhoon 2. However, I have to point out that I did notice a difference in alpha. The alpha damage is, of course, a little bit lower on this ship because it doesn't have 8 slots, so it only has 7, and it's doing basically the alpha damage of 7, not of 8, like we have on the Typhoon 2. But still, I'm quite happy with how it performs, and honestly, the difference isn't that noticeable. I expected more of a gap between these two ships, but the actual difference is around, I would say, 15-25%. Overall, if you take a look at how much this ship costs and how much Typhoon 2 costs, then the price to performance ratio on this ship is pretty good. Now, I know that people like to fly the Raven, and I believe the Raven will be the next battleship that I'll be flying. And also, Raven is practically my favorite target in the Ortus, because for some reason no Raven did make me warp away. I did shoot down 100% Ravens that I have tackled in the Ortus. When I fight a Typhoon, I'm kinda careful because I know that a well-built ship can easily defend itself against the Ortus, or basically any other ship. But the Ortus, like I mentioned before, is the ultimate battleship hunter, so the Ortus is going to be your main enemy in any battleship. Doesn't matter if it's a drone boat or if it's a missile boat or if it uses railguns or turrets. The Ortus is going to be your primary target or main enemy, because these ships are just made to shoot down stuff that's a little bit larger than them, and that's okay. That's what Mordo ships usually do, and that's why I'm going to be taking a look at most battleships, and I will be giving you builds to counter pirates. I mean, that's going to be fun. So far I believe the builds that I did try out work. I'm currently trying to max out the kill marks on the Battleground. I'm at 850 or something, so it should happen very soon. After that happens, I'm going to be jumping in the Typhoon too as the primary PvP battleship. Now, if you plan to use torpedo launchers on the Typhoon, I really recommend that you use a afterburner. Last time when I tried this build with a micro drive, it did not work well because I was running out of the missile range, so I have learned on my mistakes. And using a afterburner can also allow you to speed tank a little bit, which is overall a good thing, excellent thing for missions, by the way. We can also use a afterburner with the rapid missiles, but if you are in low sec, then I believe speed is your friend in storyline missions, especially in storyline missions where you have pirates lurking around. I'm actually very impressed. I did forget how quick these ships are. Been a while since I have flown Minmatar ships. They're very unique and very special in that aspect. They are very quick and overall work extremely well with practically any build that you can imagine. And the alpha damage on the torpedoes is nice. So far, I have to say, the Typhoon line of ships might be one of my favorite battleships, one of my personal favorite battleship lines in the game. Been flying the big and slow Battleground for a while. Will be a very nice change of pace when I jump in one of these ships. Alright, well, that was a nice little run on the Typhoon. Overall, both the tier 9 and the tier 10 version of this ship are phenomenal. I really cannot recommend these ships enough, and overall I'm very excited to be flying them as main ships. I also did plan to do some solo PvP in them. Who knows, I might actually get to fight an Ortus in these ships. Will be fun. I'm very excited to test out my theories in actual combat. Well then, with that being said, hope that I could help, hope that the builds will serve well. And with that being said, stay safe, fly safe, and I'll see you next time.